Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It's a few minutes after 1 a.m. Eastern time. I decided at the last minute right before I went to bed, to do a quick live stream here because I want to show you the satellite of the satellite loop of Hurricane Irma. Top winds 185 miles an hour, and this island here is the island of Barbuda, and we are seeing the western edge of the eye wall now just about touching that island. The eye is almost a perfect circle. This is a classic Category 5 hurricane, completely symmetrical. It really hasn't lost much in terms of its intensity during the evening hours. It's sort of bottomed out in the pressure at about 916 millibars, and the last reconnaissance fix had about the same pressure. So this is one of the strongest hurricanes ever observed in the Atlantic Basin outside of the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico with respect to wind, because the Air Force plane has been finding winds of 150 knots or higher, and sustained winds, maximum sustained winds, again remain at 185 miles per hour. Truly a marvel from a meteorological standpoint. This is just amazing, really, to see. You just don't see storms like this that often. And wrong one. Let's see if we can get, this was the recon fix from earlier today. 920, 917, 917, 917 on that west-northwest course. Now this again was earlier, but you can see from the passes that the Hurricane Hunter plane made, the pink area here, that's 137 knots or higher. And you've got it all over the place. Just astounding. And actually even more so is the fact that the gales, which are the dark greens, extend out pretty far from the center, about 75 to 90 miles from the center on the south side. And the blue area, the purple area to the north, those are hurricane force winds that are extending out almost 90 to 100 miles on the north side. So you can see how the storm has expanded over the last several days. It is just amazing. And going back to Irma here on the satellite loop, one of the things that's happened here is that all those eye wall replacement cycles that we've been seeing, they've stopped. The eye has, when it formed earlier today, it has remained. So this eye has not seen another one of those cycles. It's likely to have one at some point. And you can see Barbuda now is just about in the eye. That eye wall is going through them right now. I imagine they must be getting absolutely hammered with northerly winds, or depending on the exact position of where the center is, either north-northeast or north-northwest. Just really a marvel to see. And after this, on this course, it will pass very close to the island of Anguilla sometime during the day on Tuesday, and then over or just to the north of the British Virgin Islands, which are right here. The U.S. Virgin Islands are to the south. They're going to get a little bit less. They won't get the eye from this, but the British Virgin Islands will be close. And on its current course, assuming that it holds, that eye should pass just to the north of Puerto Rico and stay out over the coastal waters. Now, I want to show you the new Gfs Run, and we'll let it load here, and we'll do it this way. So let's put that up for you, and I'll switch regions. The model run late this afternoon took a decided shift to the right after Florida, but that has reversed on this run. You can see the track is west-northwest right into, now we are at Thursday night, through the Bahamas. Hurricane warnings are likely to go up in the Bahamas probably during the day on Wednesday or by Wednesday evening. And then it continues on a west-northwest course just till about it's in the westernmost Bahamas. And from here on today's run, and now we are at Saturday night, which at this point there would, of course, be hurricane warnings up for Florida. The GFS turns it sharply northward here, and this is the big question. All the models have this sharp turn. Does it happen where the hurricane winds up passing just to the east of the Florida coast, or does it happen a little bit further to the west, which is what the Hurricane Center's official forecast is? And you can see it moving from there straight north into South Carolina. And this is, again, a shift southwestward. I think the risk is for both Florida and the southeast coast, and it's quite possible that we could wind up with. Show me that it is. I'm not sure. Okay, so we're back on, folks. I'm sorry for that. I don't know. For some reason, lately I've been losing the signal. My Wi-Fi must be having some issues. I'm not so sure what's going on, but hopefully we can resolve this. Maybe everybody's interested in getting into this, watching all this. But I just put up here, this is the upper air, and we're looking way up in the atmosphere now, up at about 25,000 feet or higher. And here's Irma at this point. Now, what's happening is what's left of the trough in the east is showing westerly winds from North Carolina and Virginia out into the Atlantic. Okay, there's here's Irma off the Florida coast, but you have a trough, a fairly it's not a strong trough, but in the higher layers of the atmosphere, it's a little more impressive. That's running down from the Great Lakes through the lower Mississippi Valley and into the central Gulf states and just offshore. It's that trough that Irma is going to maneuver and move into. So if we follow the reflection of Irma there, and let me, we'll see if I can get the interact going, and we can move it along. You can see how that trough just drops southward into Arkansas. That upper low and the high layers of the atmosphere, when we look at the water vapor imagery, that's what you would see. That's steering Irma, at least on the GFS, northward and then northwestward into South Carolina. Actually takes it right into Charleston. Now, I'm just going to say at this point that there's a high degree of uncertainty, again, given what the models have been doing. And I suspect, the European was much further to the west. It keeps it actually brings it on the north coast of Cuba. So do some of the hurricane tracking models. I'll show you the National Hurricane Center's forecast. And there it is. This should be the latest one. And they've left it pretty much alone. They take the hurricane just touching the north central coast of Cuba and then turning northwestward. That's when the sharp turn on the Hurricane Center's forecast brings it over the Florida Keys. But again, you can see that high degree of uncertainty with the spread getting wider as we move through time. Warnings continue, of course, for the Northern Leewards, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. Now we have hurricane warnings up for the Dominican Republic. Watches up for the north coast of Haiti. And we have hurricane warnings up for a good chunk of Cuba and a hurricane watch. There's a hurricane watch for Cuba and a hurricane watch for the Bahamas. So you're going to probably see these go to warnings at some point during the day on Wednesday. So, why don't we chat for a little bit since I'm already up. Let me just switch over. Okay, so it's hi to Gmork. We have Dottie Dog on here, and you want the link to the pages to Tropical Tidbits? Absolutely. Hang on, guys. So just stand by. I'm just trying to scroll through all your messages. So let me just give a collective hello to everyone. Okay. Yes, right, JS Speedy. Oh, so much for me going to bed. So I will put the link up for Tropical Tidbits. And it's tropicaltidbits.com. And by the way, his traffic there is so heavy that he's afraid he's going to crash his server. So be gentle over there. And thank you to Levi Cowan and Tropical Tidbits as always. Okay, so we'll try it that way. How's that? Does that work? You're right, Wayne. How could I sleep with this going on? I just put up 2 posts on my website about the GFS. If you guys want to read it, I'll put that link up there for that too. Oh, and you know what? Why don't we look at the 2 other tropical systems that are out there? Because it's quite possible we could have 3 hurricanes running around in a couple of days. So let's go to the wider tropical Atlantic view. And hopefully, there it is. Okay, great. So Irma's in the middle. Here's Tropical Storm Jose, which has been strengthening. Top winds are estimated at 50 miles an hour. It's about a little less than 1,000 miles to the southeast of Irma. And it's moving toward the west. And in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, we have Tropical Depression 13, which is going to get pinned down in the Gulf of Mexico. It's not going in the southwestern Gulf. I don't think this is going to be able to move up northward, and I'll show you why. You see right up here, you see how these clouds are moving northwest to southeast? That's that deep upper trough that's about to swing into the eastern part of the United States. That should keep this pinned down in the southwest Gulf, possibly through its entire existence. And if it does stay down there, the water is very warm. It wasn't particularly upwelled too much by Harvey, but by now that's all kind of settled down, and the waters have warmed up a bit. So you'll probably see this develop into a tropical storm, and there's a chance that it even could become a hurricane. But the Hurricane Center is basically forecasting this to kind of sit here for a few days and then gradually drift southward. Because of the fact that you're going to have Irma on the scene and the way the upper air is structured, you're going to have northerly winds. Again, you're also going to have that deep trough, that deeper trough in the upper layers of the atmosphere, dropping down into the north central Gulf of Mexico. So that's going to create a northerly flow in the western Gulf. So I don't think that this is a threat to Texas. Jose is going to be tied somewhat to whatever Irma does. And I think what's going to happen is it may get to someplace north of the Leeward Islands and then just stall for a few days as it waits for Irma to just kind of sort of play out. So the future of Jose is rather uncertain and could evolve into something bizarre in the longer term. So we have to alert ourselves for that possibility. And let's go back. This was Irma. Look at the difference, by the way. This was Irma back yesterday when that eye was just starting to really begin to take shape. And when we look at it now on the new loop, on the current loop with the latest picture, let's see if the eye's moved over Barbuda. Not yet, so we may have to wait another frame. I'm going to try and freshen this up. Maybe it'll add another frame to it. Almost there, folks. That eye is almost over the island of Barbuda. In another hour or so, it'll be Barbuda will be sitting in the middle of that eye, which is about, it looks like it's about 30 to 40 miles in diameter. I'm just amazed at what a almost absolutely perfect circle this thing is. And I'm going to check to see. There was a new recon mission. I don't think that they're close, but let me just take a look at that. Oh, thank you. Whoever just bought me the cup of coffee for the morning. JS Sweetie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Yes, a cup of coffee for me. And my coffee maker just broke the other day, so I may have to actually go out and buy some coffee in the morning. Haven't had a chance to replace it. Let's see. By the way, I know some of you have asked, and I'm not asking you to do this, but if you should feel inclined, I'm just going to put it up. If you want to buy me a cup of coffee or a cigar and a cigar or a cigar, and You can't do it on the super chat. You can do it via PayPal. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Miami and Florida are flat land, and the ocean will be the killer. The sea will rise above the land and wash it like a massive tsunami and take the entire house with it. Box one. Well, you know what? If that thing comes in as a Category 5, woe to those that are still on that don't evacuate. I know the CMC is garbage. Can Jose help steer the Hurricane Irma out to sea? I don't think so. In this case, in the case of Joaquin, the remnants of Ida were north and west of Joaquin, and that created the trough that Joaquin responded to and moved away from the Bahamas rather than get wrapped up in the upper low to the west, which was what every model showed except the European at the time. In this particular instance, Jose is southwest of Irma. So I think Irma is going to be the one that pulls it toward it to some degree. But I don't think it's going to, because of its position relative to Irma, I don't think it's going to have the impact of pulling it to the east. I think that's being caused by all the troughing that's going to be going on across the United States. I suppose also at this point, you have probably recognized the complexity of what we deal with here with respect to these tropical systems. It has changed so much. Thank you, Wayne. I'll get a new cup of a new coffee maker. Thank you so much. You guys are all very kind. I really appreciate it. The Canadian model, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I looked at it and I just laughed. It basically takes it from the Bahamas and just takes it northeast to just southeast of Cape Cod. I mean, it's just the model, and it isn't so much that it took it out to sea that bothers me, but it's the fact that the day run took it into the east central Gulf of Mexico. So you basically have had the model shift by almost 1,600 miles. I mean, that's insane. That's not a tool that's worth using from a forecast standpoint. It just isn't. And you know what? Even if it were to turn out to be correct, it's still a horrible tool and should not be used as a forecast tool, because your broken clocks are right twice a day, and I don't see there's no value to it. What's it going to do tomorrow in the afternoon? Bring it back into the east central Gulf? Take it up somewhere in the middle? I mean, that's just nonsense. Let me just take a look to see if the new HWRF model, one of the hurricane models, that's not in yet. And we have ensembles. Nope, they haven't started either. I know it's a little early for them anyway. Let's see if there's a new recon mission. No new recon mission. So we're kind of stuck here. Let's see. What about the West Coast from Naples to Port Charlotte? Could we see what Charlie brought years ago? Well, the European and some of the track models do bring it over the Florida Keys and take it into Southwest Florida. I don't think we can. I would think that would be the farthest west. To me, I've been kind of using the idea that the GFS is the farthest east of the models to use, and the European is the farthest west, and everybody else is somewhere in the middle. And I think that's where I would like to be in terms of a forecast, somewhere between those two. And the GFS has made a pretty sizable shift southwestward from that run in the mid-afternoon, where it took it not far off the Florida coast, but far enough, and then took it straight northward into southwestern North Carolina. I thought that was way too much in terms of taking it that far east, and it has now come back to something a little more reasonable, and actually matches up pretty well with the run that went through at midday. I'm G-Mark. I'm on Long Island in New York. I'm about 50 miles east of New York City, so yeah, I'm pretty safe here. In fact, our weather here is going to be beautiful at the end of the weekend and through the weekend. Miami Beach right now, and I can see it. Okay, Kimberly, sure you can, with great big binoculars. Thank you so much. Burning the 115 oil, the 1159 oil, yes, which is now at 125. Possibilities for Southeast Virginia. Well, I think Mr. J1S, that would depend. I'm assuming that there'll be a landfall from Florida and then into the southeast coast, South Carolina or Georgia. It'll be a question of whether the remnant system will be able to move northeastward east of the Appalachians, in which case you will get some rain and some gales out of it. But if it goes west of the Appalachians, I'm thinking you would not get very much. Let's see. Pistol whipping. The man just owned me. I'm okay. I'm kind of lost. I guess I missed that part of it. Dotty Dog check super chat. Okay. I don't see you there. Let's see. Hurricane right in Barbuda. If you're, let's see, a nice man. Yes, I did see that. Thank you. I did see two nice men gave me a hit on the super chat. Jay Sweetie and Wayne S. And again, big thank yous to both. Let me just Wayne S. and at JS Sweetie. Is there a chance, Nitro, that the winds hit 200 miles an hour? Well, that would be a record. I've never seen, that would be a record in terms of the highest wind. I believe that I can't remember an Atlantic storm, even the Category 5s around where they reported 2 miles an hour. Regal Racer, thank you so much for the Partagas D for me, number 4. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. R-E. I sure will enjoy it, by the way. Okay, you want to check to see? We'll check to see the satellite loop to see what's going on. And I really would like to see that eye get to. All right, hang on, folks. I just realized I didn't. Oh, there we go. My computer got unplugged. I don't want to lose the battery power. I should bring it back. All right, we're going to have a new loop here in a second. Just almost there. We'll need one more frame. It looks like part of the island is now in the eye. It's just amazing to see this. I'm not going to stay up for the European because that doesn't start for another 30 minutes. Could the eye go through Palm Beach? Look, if it goes up along the Florida coast, up and down, this is going to be really problematic for Florida. No question about it. And I'm thinking it's a Category 5 eBascom, not a 4. It's a 5. Top winds are 185 on the last advisory, and the pressure is 916 millibars. So still a Category 5. And by the way, if it doesn't touch any landmass, it's quite possible that this could remain a Category 5 right up until the point that it reaches the Florida coast. This is going to be very, very interesting to watch to see how it all plays. I don't know. Well, you know what? Gusting to 225. I didn't see any reports of gusts on the recon. I'm going to punch it up, the last recon that's there, and see what they have. And let's see. Vortex data message. Okay, on the last reconnaissance aircraft, this was actually quite recent. So this was only a few minutes ago. The pressure is actually dropped 1 millibar to 915 millibars. The wind from the drop zone was 153 knots, and the max flight level wind was 163 knots. That's insane. That is just insane. The center is at 17.6 north, 61.6 west. So 17.7, 61.6. Do we have a new mission? Mission number 11. Okay, yes. All right, so we do. So let me I'm going to put it up for you so you can see the 915. So just a second here. Let me go back. I'll put it on this one because I'm not going to use the Corpus Christi radar again unless there's another hurricane in South Texas. Okay, so there it is. So here's the motion. You can see it's steadily been moving on this west-northwest course now, 917, 17, 17, 18, and now 915. So we've had a 3 millibar drop since the last pass. And you can see here in the wind barbs, 130, 2 flags, and I believe that's 3 barbs there, so that's 130. But these whitish areas, and that could actually be a 3rd flag, so that might be 150. But you can see on the darker shade here, this is all 137 or higher. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that with respect to that wind bar. But all of this is 137 or higher, 137 or higher, 137 or higher. These fierce winds are going right over the island of Barbuda, which is right about there. Just astounding. I'm like really, it's very jaw-dropping for me because you don't see Category 5 hurricanes very often. I remember, when there was a time where they really didn't, we didn't have all this, so we weren't able to see it. We were just able to, you just kind of had to visualize it in some respects, and the amount of information that was available publicly was expensive, and you had to pay for it, or either that or you had to know somebody that had an old-fashioned teletype machine that you would get the information from. But just amazing. All right, so let me go back to you guys to see if you got any other questions. Lewis Garrett, you're in Naples. Well, you're on the West Coast, so I mean, unless it really goes far to the west and comes in at the Keys, and then moves up the west coast of Florida, you're probably not in the worst spot to be. But it's going to depend on track. If it goes right along the east coast of Florida, you'll get some wind out of it. But I think for me, the biggest issue is if it were to track and come inland in South Florida, basically right in between, and then ride up just inland where it goes northward, cutting the state in half over Orlando and on north from there. Because if that happens, then you could wind up with the bulk of the circulation will be over water, with half of it over the Atlantic Ocean and half of it over the Gulf of Mexico and the center inland. And if we do get something like that, you would have hurricane force winds up and down the peninsula, both on the coast and even inland. I would not at all be surprised to see hurricane force winds of certainly in gusts in many inland locations, and also because of the fact that the circulation would be, so much of the circulation would be over water. You would get some weakening, but the weakening would be very, very slow. It could still wind up being, weakening down. Maybe if it's a 5 when it moves inland, then it moves down. You could still have a Category 3 there as it's halfway up the state. So that, I think, is my biggest concern, is if we get a track that's along those lines. The other issue is, by the way, with respect to the European run, and I think I'll show you this from the day run. There's a couple of things about the European run that were a little bothersome to me in trying to figure out you know, when you're a forecaster and you're trying to figure out some kind of angle to work with to help you get an edge. Here's the European, and I will, let's put the anomaly of the pressure. Okay, this was the European's track, and I just want to point out a couple of things. You'll notice that the pressure that the model is showing is 966 for Wednesday morning. We're at 915. So the model is 50 millibars too high. Okay. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but the fact is that it has, and it's 50 millibars too high. It keeps this over 950 millibars as it moves west-northwestward, and then it actually jogs to the west and it takes it inland over north-central Cuba. Now, if it does that, you're going to wind up with a weaker system because it will weaken if it does move this way. And I think the reason why the European is doing this is because of the fact that it's showing a weaker system. The hurricane is responding to the steering mechanisms in the lower levels of the atmosphere, which are going to be a little more east to west, as opposed to the well-developed hurricane that the GFS has that is so intense. And when they're that intense, they respond to the steering levels at the higher levels of the atmosphere, which are more south-southeast, and which is why the hurricane on the GFS probably turns sharply to the north. I'm going to respect, given the fact that we're at 915 millibars, I'm going to respect the GFS's intensity forecasts going forward because, frankly, it's the only one that's, in let's call it the ballpark with this. And the European, by the way, took it over Cuba for a period of 24 hours, brings it back out into the Gulf of Mexico and up the west coast of Florida. Okay, so you can see what I'm saying here. You've got the European in this position, and for the same time frame on the new GFS, you have it already approaching the coast of South Carolina. So this is the GFS's track, through the Bahamas. See, this is at this point, this is where they diverge. The GFS has that 919 pressure and a Category 5 hurricane. The European has a 950 something, and it goes straight west on the European, and it starts to go northward, right in through here. They're probably even right up until this point, because it's at this point that the European has taken it inland, and the GFS now starts taking it northwest, and then northward, and then into southwestern South Carolina, right along the coast. So it's either going to be, I think it's going to either be, this is the easternmost outlier in my view. The Canadian is not worth my time. So that's the easternmost outlier of the models, and the day run of the European, that is the western part. So somewhere in there, and if it splits the difference and goes right up the middle, I think that would be the worst case scenario from the standpoint of having wind and rain issues all the way up the state, both inland and on the coast. That would be if it split the difference, where you would wind up with the potential for some hurricane force winds on both coastlines. Doesn't happen too often. I've seen hurricane warnings up at the same time on both coasts, but I don't ever remember a hurricane actually coming in from the south and then splitting the state in half like it's being shown over here. If the euro starts to prove correct that you're getting out of Dodge, well, you know what? Keep an eye on it, and of course I will help you keep an eye on that. Let's see. I'm just trying to see. Nitro. Let's say Irma were to remain over the water through the whole trip to Florida. Could it strengthen further? I think if it does avoid going into Cuba like the European has, I think, yes, I think it could possibly get down to under 900 millibars. There's nothing in the upper atmosphere to stop it. We'll look at the water vapor imagery. Let me get that. Well, that water vapor loop, okay? You remember we had that upper low that was sitting to the northwest of Irma. That's completely gone now. That was producing a little bit of shear. You had this upper high kind of sandwiched in between that was producing northerly winds, and we saw that yesterday where the hurricane got a little disheveled looking. Well, that's gone. You don't see any upper lows here. Everything is upper winds are light. The wind shear is minimal, if non-existent. Water temperatures through all of this area are in the mid to upper 80s. I have the water temp map somewhere. Now, of course, I can't seem to find it. Let's see. Yep. Naturally, I lost it, unless it's near the bottom. Oh, here we go, water temps. Let's see if I can freshen it up. And Irma is, here are the leewards, right through here. Irma is in 29 degrees Celsius water, or between 84 and 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and that extends all throughout this entire area, and you have pockets of 30-degree plus water. Look at the Western Bahamas. The water temperatures here are in the upper 80s. If it maintains this strength as it moves across, and then gets into that supercharged water there, you could certainly see it. I think you can certainly see this break 900. It's down to 915. It wouldn't take much. We're almost there. So. For those of you, again, who are weather geeks among you, this is a really a moment to watch. Maybe we got a new shot of Irma, so let's take a look. Okay. There it is, folks. You can see it here on this satellite. The island of Barbuda is sitting inside the eye of Hurricane Irma at the moment. So it's after being ripped with the winds of probably up to 100 to 150 miles an hour, I would think. They are now in relative calm, waiting to get back in on the other side with winds equally as fierce, or possibly, this is where the strongest winds are on the east side. So as bad as things may have been before it got into the eye coming in from the east, it's going to get a lot worse. And it's think of how small that island is and the target that it just went right over it. And if you follow the motion along on a straight line, the island of Anguilla is next. So that will be probably during the day on Wednesday. Just amazing. I keep saying that because I'm blown away by this. Let's see, I'm going to try to get more of your comments here. Yeah, so is it remotely you know what? You're at 185. It'll depend on what the plane measures when it's in there. The GFS is, a lot of us were saying that maybe with all this, feedback issues, but maybe it's not feedback issues that we're going to see pressures down close to 900. Pugmaster, I still think that that it's going to turn. It'll either turn as far west as the European has it at the Keys, or maybe where the GFS has it, or somewhere in between. But I don't think it gets further out. You're going to have that trough dropping down into the north central Gulf of Mexico. That's going to keep it. Even if it does make it, if it goes at the Florida Keys, it's going to turn northward at that point and head up the west coast of Florida, if that's the track that it follows by being further to the west. I'm not understanding your question, Dave Bananas. What is your opinion on fee? You might want to explain that. I'm not sure what that means. I'm in Fort Lauderdale. Not many people evacuating. Actually, most people stocking up on supplies and staying. Well, you know what? I don't know. You're taking a shot. The track, if it's offshore, if it's just offshore, it'll get very rough for a while. But as long as the eye does not move onshore, um, you know, that at least would be not the worst of it. If the eye wall comes onshore, wherever it does, that is not going to be good. This is as strong as Andrew was. And for South Florida remembers Andrew, so that needs to be considered. And yeah, let's not bring the Cat 6 up again. Please remember with the categories. Category 5 is catastrophic damage. You can't get worse than catastrophic damage. Okay, I think the only other option is an apocalypse. All right, and the categories are 1 to 5, and 5 is the worst. Yes, thank you. That is my tie. I wore it on the air today. Will it come to Charlotte? Well, if it moves northward the way it is, you're going to get some rain up there and maybe some wind, but you will get some heavy rain there, Liz Wilberg. You're far enough inland. 914 and 185 miles an hour, so the pressure has dropped a bit more. Jose, as we showed earlier, in case you're joining late, I'll punch it up again. I'm going to have to get to bed soon because I am tired. Here's the Atlantic satellite. Jose is south and west of Irma. I'm sorry, south and east of Irma. Top winds are 50 miles an hour, and I think this is going to become a hurricane possibly as early as later tomorrow. So you've got Irma in the middle. You've got Jose here to the southeast, and you have a tropical depression in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico that's possibly becoming a tropical storm in the next day or two, but that is going to stay pinned down in the Gulf because of northerly winds that are going to be set up aloft from the western Gulf states on into the northwestern Gulf of Mexico. So I don't believe that this is going to be a problem for Texas. This is the last thing that they would need would be another tropical storm to bring in more rain after what the poor folks in Southeast and South Texas just went through. So they don't need that again, and they're not going to get it this time around. The next name on the list, by the way, is Katia. Okay, so we have Irma, Jose, and Katia. Those are the names, and it's quite possible that by Saturday we could have 3 hurricanes on the map all at the same time, and we don't really see that too often. I've seen I think 5 or 6. I'm trying to remember back in 2005. I think there was one point that there were 6 named tropical systems running around all at the same time, and I believe 5 of them were hurricanes. Ventusky, the Ventusky site, 192 mile an hour winds. I believe it. I'm sure they're certainly in gusts. There probably were. Naming Jose is racist. Okay. By the way, the names are not just kind of haphazardly picked. All the countries, the weather services from all the countries, that includes the Netherlands, it includes France, Britain, Mexico, Spain, and a few others. All those countries, the weather people, they kind of sit down and figure this out in terms of the names. So you have the names reflecting the cultures of the areas that are being impacted, and that's why you have these wide variety of names. Ariel Elzar, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Flying down to Fort Lauderdale on Thursday. Mom has a beach condo with hurricane windows going to storm chase. Bad idea. Ariel, if you've got a Category 5 hurricane coming into Fort Lauderdale, I wouldn't do it. Okay. I assume you're an adult, so you're going to have to make that decision. But I would not do it. Okay. Watch it on TV. Okay. It's just not worth it. Putting your life at risk. And we've had several storm chasers die this year in the process of storm chasing, and some of them, I think 2 of them, God rest them, did not. They weren't chasing. They were at a stop sign, and I think somebody blew a stop sign or a red light and T-boned them. Yeah, I just wouldn't do it. I would highly suggest that you don't. Um, the Dominican Republic, especially Santo Domingo, are you in significant trouble? Emerson, I think that Irma is going to pass north of the north coast of the Dominican Republic. You might get into the tropical storm force winds. I don't think it may just be far enough north. But I want to be careful here because, if we do have, all along through all of this, we've had westward shifts, westward and southern shifts in the track. So if we continue to do that, that might bring the hurricane a little bit closer. So absolutely pay attention to what's going on with Irma as it approaches the Dominican Republic. But it should pass just far enough north, and it should also pass just far enough north of Puerto Rico. The eye, I think, will stay north of the north coast of Puerto Rico. Jeffrey Case, currently, I would say some people might not be maybe saying it's not going to make landfall in Florida. As I indicated earlier, the GFS, the new GFS, which has come in further west from what it did late this. I think everybody just kind of jumped on the GFS run late this afternoon, which kept the bulk of the hurricane offshore to the east of Florida, has now come back to the west and has it just off the coast. I think that's the furthest east track you would consider. The Europeans track takes it through the Florida Keys and up the west coast of Florida. And I've been of the mindset that we will see something, that the ultimate outcome will be something in between those two. Maybe with a tendency to be a little bit more to the east of the middle than the west of the middle. But I'm going to be watching very closely the next few days this west-northwest track, and what happens when it moves through the Bahamas, because when we get to that point, we're going to be really being able to see the upper rigid play trying to hold it and keep it moving westward, or is the strength of the storm so strong that it reacts to winds at mid and high levels of the atmosphere, which may be more south-southeast, and start to turn more toward the north. So these are going to be critical issues with regards to where this is going forward. I don't know what you're talking about with WPIX being fake news. I'm guessing you're referencing somebody else responding to someone else, but I'm not 100% sure what that's about. Okay, I'm sorry, but Spring Hill is where I really don't know. By the way, if you could please, if you ask me about a particular town, a small town, I'm not going to know. So, give me a distance from a big city. How far from Tampa? How far from Fort Myers? How far from Fort Lauderdale? Something like that. Is it west or east? Yeah, Aberdeen, I got a lot of folks on. I figured out these after midnight broadcasts to get a lot of you folks that are up late at night. Vasu Kamal, gaming theories, and more. Is this caused by global warming? You can't look at any one storm and say global warming is the cause or climate change is the cause. You cannot look at a single weather event. I will point out just this one fact that someone, went on a rant with me about the fact that, these 100-year storms happening every other day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I pointed out that Harvey was the first Category 3 hurricane to make a landfall in the United States for 12 years. And that is the longest streak of not getting a major hurricane on record. So if it is global warming, then why did we just have a 12-year stretch where we didn't see any Category 3 hurricanes hit the United States? So, I put that question out there. The fact is that this year we've had 2 Category 3 hurricanes or higher, and this is the first 5 since Hurricane Wilma in 2005. So it's been 12 years since we've seen a Category 5. I think there's some debate over whether Joaquin was a 5 or not. I think they might have made it a 5 because of the wind when they changed the criteria around. And that's another thing. The criteria for a 5 has changed. It used to be that you had to have 156-mile-an-hour winds and a pressure of less than 925 millibars at the same time. And they changed it where they took the pressure criteria away and made it strictly based on the wind. So somebody would have to really go back and kind of recalculate, what exactly then is a Category 5. And categories are descriptions of damage potential. The Category 3 hurricane is extensive damage. The Category 4 hurricane is widespread damage. And the Category 5 hurricane is potentially catastrophic damage. You can't go higher than potentially catastrophic, okay? Unless you want to go cataclysmic or apocalyptic, all right? But occasionally, potentially catastrophic, I think, describes pretty well, what a Category 5 hurricane can do. And it basically, if you're on the coast with one hits, it could certainly wipe out a town. Just ask anyone who lived through Camille in 1969 when it hit in Gulfport in Mississippi. Okay, so look, folks, 52 minutes tonight, which is not what I intended, and it's almost 2 o'clock, and I have to get to bed. So thank you so much. Try a live stream tomorrow around midday, either 11 a.m. or noon. And I did a live stream this evening from where I work, so I will bring my laptop with me to work tomorrow during the day on Wednesday, and I'll try another live stream perhaps around 7:30 tomorrow. Okay, so have a great night. Everybody go to sleep. Okay, and please, just kind of keep your mind logical and calm through all of this, and not go off the deep end. Just beware that we've got this Category 5 hurricane. The threats for Florida are real, and they continue. The threats for the southeast coast, I believe, are for South Carolina and Georgia are real and continue. Less so for North Carolina, and even less so as you go further north. I think the risk that this would make it further north than South Carolina are not that high at the moment. And also, please remember that this is a fluid situation. There are going to be more changes in terms of the forecast as we go through the next few days, and watch what this this incredible storm that we're seeing with Hurricane Irma. And here's one last look on the loop as Barbuda. Let's freshen the browser up in case there's a new frame. I don't think there will be, but there's Barbuda now sitting inside the eye of Hurricane Irma. All right, good night, everybody. Thanks again for those of you who hit the super chat. Absolutely, we'll have some coffee on that on you tomorrow. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again tomorrow when we live stream.